that's much more enthusiastic than I'm used to. Usually I'm used to disappointment. So, my name's Zager, and I'd like to welcome all of you to part 3 of my stand-up comedy series about the United States presidents, entitled, If He Gets Elected, I'm Leaving the Country. And I've been told for most of my life that I am what is known in layman's terms as a presidential dork. Now, I always thought this for the longest time. I got confirmation of this on Sunday. I was at TA Slammers, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and somebody that he was with came up to me and said, "Hey, I remember you. You're Arthur. You used to know all about the presidents, didn't you?" And I was like, "Oh, where do I know you from?" "Oh, we went to the same elementary school together. I was a couple of grades behind you, but I remember you." And it brought on a couple revelations. First of all, it confirmed that I am as much of a dork as I thought I was. Second of all, it confirmed that I look the exact same way that I did in elementary school. That explains why I get ID'd all the fucking time when I go down to the store down the street from my house. And the other thing that it confirmed for me is that I was just perplexed that this woman remembered me from 15 years ago, even though she was a couple of grades behind me. She had no reason to know who the hell I am. In elementary school, you don't even know the people 1 grade behind you, let alone 2 grades. And so it made me realize, holy shit, I have a terrible memory. And it was one of those moments where I was like, I can't even blame weed for this. I've just always had a terrible memory. And usually I can blame weed for everything. Like when I'm talking like an idiot and just saying a bunch of ignorant stuff, I can be like, "Oh, sorry, I smoke weed, I don't know." But I can't even use that excuse for memory. So that brought on a really positive revelation for me, like, maybe I do need weed. And with that, I'd like to talk about the actual presidents that I'm going to go through. First of all, let's talk about President number 7, Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson, the hero of the Battle of New Orleans, the War of 1812, and the guy who is definitive proof that people in the 1800s were really lucky that the internet was not invented in that time. Because if it had been invented in 1810, let's say, he would have been fucked, because the Battle of New Orleans made his career, made it possible for him to even run for president and be taken seriously. So he would be on Twitter the night before the battle, and he'd be like, "Yeah, go British, you better be fucking ready for me. Hashtag New Orleans 1814. Anyone know the important significance of the Battle of New Orleans in the War of 1812?
It was already over.
The war was already over. So as soon as he put that status, somebody in the higher chains of command, probably President Madison himself, would have sent a response at General Jackson, "Oh no you fucking don't, dude." And another thing about Andrew Jackson that I find very amazing is just the fortitude of this man. This was a guy who quite literally put himself in a position to be shot every moment that he could. And he's also the man who was the target of the first reported attempted assassination on a United States president, in which both guns misfired. I'll repeat that. Both guns misfired. Do you know how much of a badass you have to be at the point where bullets are afraid of you? We can only hope to reach that level in our lifetimes. And he was also the guy who decided, you know that federal bank that Alexander Hamilton set up when the country was first started? I want to see that thing fall. I hate that thing. I want to see it die. And the way he did this is actually one of the most interesting movie ideas that has never been put to use. He took small increments of money from the federal bank and put them in private banks in different states over a year-long period of time. That is a fucking heist movie that needs to be made. Get Martin Scorsese on this shit, because this movie needs to happen. And it eventually led to a lot of problems with his successor, our 8th president, Martin Van Buren, who was sworn into office in March of 1837, and then coincidentally had to be president during the Panic of 1837, which was the result of the federal bank being completely demolished, because Andrew Jackson was really knowledgeable about military strategy and how to talk to people, but he neglected a few important things, like economics. That being, if you destroy the bank where all the money is being kept, we're not going to have any money. Who would have thought? And so Martin Van Buren's presidency was doomed from the start, to the point where Martin Van Buren, for the longest time, was the last vice president ever elected to the presidency. This was not done again until George Herbert Walker Bush was elected in 1988. 150 years later. How bad does your presidency have to be that for a century and a half, the American people have to be like, you know, maybe we shouldn't try that again? But apparently God had a different idea, because he decided, you know what? We need more vice presidents to be presidents. You guys want to make this decision? I'll make my own. Which brings us to our 9th president, William Henry Harrison. A man who is, you only need to know 3 things about him in order to know the extent of his presidency. He served the shortest term of any president, 31 days, 1 month. Because, number 2, he was the first president to die in office. The reason he died in office was because he decided, I'm going to give a 2-hour inaugural address in the pouring rain without a jacket, a hat, anything. And the 3rd thing you need to know about him is that he is the only president to this day to have had a medical degree. I will repeat that because it's vaguely important. The president who decided that he was better than Mother Nature had a medical degree. Because apparently irony didn't exist in the 1840s. Can you, what was he thinking the night before the inaugural address? Was he just thinking, that medical degree? Fuck that thing, I know what I'm doing. I got elected president, I must know what I'm doing. And it also makes me think, what was the medical knowledge up until that point? Were they still using leeches? Were they still using potions made by witches or something like that, to the point where he didn't know, maybe I shouldn't be out in the rain, I might catch a cold? And the reason that this was important is because it was pretty much God saying, you guys don't want to elect another vice president? I'm going to intercede on his behalf. And he killed the president. And until 1980, every 20 years, a president who was either assassinated or died in office, starting from William Henry Harrison, every 20 years, a president that was elected in the 1840, 1860, all that, they died in office. Until Ronald Reagan. He was shot, but didn't die. And then God pretty much said, okay, he survived. What are you going to do? And then the entire collective of the United States population said, okay, we get it. We're going to elect this vice president. Just stop already. Just stop. And that is what led us to the position that we're in today. Join me next week as I begin part 4, talking about John Tyler, James K. Polk, and my man, Zachary Taylor. That concludes the comedic portion of tonight. I'm going to do a quick song for you guys.